Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com with this week's episode of the Rogues Alley. This week I want to do a train wreck of a deck called Deploy the Gatewatch, which I highly doubt will win very many matchups, if any at all. But I want to try this card out as it's been quite a while since I have played Deploy the Gatewatch. In fact, I don't think I've tried it since Kaladesh. And we've got some new toys. I originally wanted to build it with Chandra, Torch of Defiance being the focal point, as you can go turn 3 Chandra off of a mana dork and then turn 4 Deploy the Gatewatch off of a tick up of Chandra. But the real all-star of Deploy the Gatewatch is going to be Chandra Flamecaller. So I want to run more Chandra Flamecallers, but don't want to run into the problem of having to kill my own Chandra to kind of upgrade to the new Chandra. So the two cards you want to hit the most off Deploy the Gatewatch are Sorin, Grim Nemesis, and Chandra Flamecaller. So those are very similar to the Planeswalkers when I played this back when Deploy the Gatewatch was just out. But we have got some new juicy cards, especially like Ajani Unyielding and Nissa Vital Force, which I think are pretty good hits off of the Deploy the Gatewatch. In fact, I don't even know what route to go, so we're just going to run them all. And all the Planeswalkers that I think are actually relevant in this. There are a few that I didn't put in, like the Nissa, the X mana Nissa, as if you hit it off Deploy the Gatewatch, it just dies. So we're going to run 2 Kiora, Master of the Depths, and 2 Tamiyo Field Researchers, because these are our turn 3 plays, as well as a Chandra, a Dovin, a Nahiri, and a Saheeli, and also Arlinn that can come out early, Arlinn Cord, and then the Deploy the Gatewatch can find the other Planeswalkers. So I think there's 19 Planeswalkers in this build, and the rest of the cards are just going to be filled up with lands, a good variety of Botanical Sanctum, Blooming Marsh, Basics, and Aether Hub, as well as Attune with Aether, Oath of Nissa, and then the 2 mana dorks we're going to use is the Chandler Initiate and the Servant of the Conduit. Our last 2 flex spots I put was a 1 of Oath of Chandra and a 1 of Oath of Liliana, so we're not really interacting too much with our opponent. We're hoping to get out some Planeswalkers and make them answer those Planeswalkers. So the sideboard, we have 2 Fumigates. I might need to go up and count of Fumigates. We have 4 Harness Lightnings in the sideboard. I'm going to run some creatures just as a bait and switch. The good old UI control used to be notorious for this back in the day, for not running any creatures, and then when the opponent sides out all of their creature removal, you bring in some great creatures like Glorybringer or Bristling Hydra that can just take over the game quite quickly. So Bristling Hydra is a good dump for a lot of the energy that this deck can produce, like the unused Attune with the Aether or the Harness Lightnings. And it is a hexproof card with that energy, at least for a few activations. And then we're going to run 2 more Chandras and 2 more Nahiris, as I think they both synergize. They're both control cards, so if we need to control kind of the mid-range, those are the best cards. They're great against other control decks too, because if you do hit a Nahiri early, it is very, very difficult to deal with. So anyway, nothing special here. I'm sure, like I said, this deck is not what you want to be doing when you're playing Magic. Is not you want a good mix of cards, a good mix of threats, control, ramp, things like that. And this deck, basically all we are is banking on getting the right Planeswalker at the right time, which is so random because we're running all of the Planeswalkers that I doubt that it is going to be successful. But we're going to do it for the science, for the lulz, as they say. As hitting a Deploy the Gatewatch, our goal is to get a Sorin, Grim Nemesis and a Chandra Flamecaller off a Deploy the Gatewatch. And again, I could be heavier in those particular cards, but I just want to see what works. I guess we don't really need like a Saheeli. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and cut the Saheeli, and we'll go ahead and add 1 more Sorin, as I think Sorin is the strongest play with this deck. So let's go ahead and queue this up and see what we do. All the timestamps for the matchups will be in the description as well as in the comments. You can follow along with the games, and we'll queue this up in a league. See you there. Alrighty, so match number 1 with Deploy the Gatewatch. Yes, we'd like to play first. This is a very, very risky keep. We are going to risk it, though. We do have a 1-lander. The 20 mana base is something that we're really running a ton of ways to get cards. So seven ways to get more lands. And with this deck, you don't want to flood out too bad, because once you get to 6 mana, there's nothing to do with the excess mana. So we do have the first turn Blooming Marsh into hopefully a second turn Initiate. Plus, with the Oath of Nissa being able to tap for any mana, that means that both the Sorin and the Liliana's Death Majesty are not going to be a problem. The only problem with this hand basically means we could peter out stuck on 3 mana sources and then top deck into a bunch of cards that we cannot cast. So let's hope to avoid that. And especially if we don't hit a land off Oath of Nissa, we're in pretty bad shape. So we're just going to go that play, the Oath of Nissa. And we do hit another Blooming Marsh. And we can put these on bottom. And then next turn we do have the Blooming Marsh Chandler Initiate play. Spirebluff Canal, which could be a lot of the control. Here's another Botanical Sanctum. So at least we have pretty much some action now with the Initiate. And the good news is if we have any Planeswalker hit, well, we're probably in great shape. So we do have to worry about Censor next turn. I'd love to see like a tap land, so therefore I can play around Censor. Harness Lightning hurts too. Okay, so it's going to be Marvel. I expected this. Marvel has pretty much taken over the meta. I didn't really put any ways to deal with Marvel in here. Tamiyo is okay just to hit here. So we'll just pump up the Initiate. And unfortunately, we drew both the Sorins, which are pretty far away from being cast. If our opponent does throw out like a Whirler Virtuoso, our opponent is stuck without a green source. So at least the Chandler Initiate will hopefully draw some cards. It could be a Harness Lightning in my opponent's hand. Unfortunately, missed here with the land. So we need a Harness Lightning not to be, or a Magma Spray. Otherwise, we're in bad shape. If we do hit here, okay, so we get to draw a card. Hopefully it's a land. And that's as good as a land, because it allows us to go get a land. And at this point, we do need a white source for the Deploy the Gatewatch. And next turn we do have the Nissa, which Nissa can get out of hand quite quickly. So here we will just go get a Plains. And then just pass the turn as we can't cast anything. And my opponent's in pretty bad shape as well. Missing the land drop. Possibly just cycling a Censor here. No, nothing. Okay, so if we win this match, I think we're more lucky than good here. Especially with another Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. These are actually terrible versus us. So now we get a free reign at the... I could actually go Kiora and draw another card. I wonder if that's the better play. Or just go Nissa. Actually, I think it's Nissa. And we can untap the Plains. Get in there for 5. This also draws us a card. And that allows us to play the Mountain, so we have to deploy the Gatewatch next turn. We'll most likely just cast Sorin, because I don't think we can hit anything better than Sorin. And we have 2 Planeswalkers ready to ult. We can be greedy. If our opponent just misses the... Yeah, I think that we just win here. Opponent missed all the land drops. Kept kind of a greedy hand. Another Oath of Gatewatch is not relevant. So I think that we end up just casting like a Liliana here. Is what I'd rather do. And just create a 2/2 black zombie, untap with Nissa, and then we can ult both Planeswalkers next turn. So pretty much, I don't know if we could probably survive an Ulamog at this point. Negate. All right, well, that changes things. Other than we can still untap and then draw 2 cards. So Negate was top decked. And we do have the... No, we did not hit a land here. But we should still be in great shape. So, I mean, my opponent's still a long ways off of doing anything. Still another turn off from Marvel. Well, there is the mana. If another top deck to Marvel. This can actually get an Attune here, which I have to assume is in hand. But we can just drop everything next turn with the Tamiyo ult. It's just going to be a Rogue Refiner. And the Tamiyo ult is going to be pretty good because we can go Sorin into Sorin, right? Yeah, that's huge. So we can emblem both, which I'm going to do. And we'll play the Forest, and all of these can just be cast. So, reveal the top card. It was just a Forest. I should have actually emblemed this, the Nissa, beforehand. Let's see. See if Arlinn does. Well, if Gideon, we just cast with all of these with Tamiyo emblem. There's Chandra. I wonder if Chandra's better. I think Ob is one we want here, and Chandra. And we can just destroy the Rogue Refiner, untap a land. We still have Arlinn Cord. Yeah, I think that actually this Tamiyo might be more powerful getting up to the emblem. Just get them all out. So I know it's funny. Not sure we can race a Marvel. There's very few ways to actually deal with it. I'm not sure if Chandra, these Chandras are better than the Chandra Flamecaller. The Flamecaller does clear like Rogue Refiners and Whirler Virtuosos. Also, if my opponent's going to bring in the... Yeah, so I think I do want Chandra's still in here. I don't see a point to bringing in both Bristling Hydras or Glorybringer or Harness Lightnings. The Oath of Chandra will keep in. Same thing with the Oath of Liliana, just because they get some value. So I don't think we do any change here. Arlinn Cord just might be pointless against. It might just be too slow for this. So something like another Nahiri, I think that's better. As well as we want all the Sorins as possible. The Jace is fine. The Ob Nixilis is fine. Nissa is fine. Tamiyos are good. Kioras do help ramp us to where we need to be. So I think I'm going to keep Kiora. And this is another one that I had 4 of in, but I wanted to kind of mix things up. So Dovin's kind of weak here as well. I wonder if Dovin is the... It can shut down. Yeah, they don't actually run the Servant, so I don't think we need to worry about Dovin. Yeah, I don't even know if Nahiri, because Nahiri we don't really have a target to go grab. Like, I'd want to bring in a 1-of. I think just bring in Chandra's, the littler Chandra is probably the right call in this particular case. So here we have a pretty decent hand. We have an Oath of Chandra to clear. Possibly a Tireless Tracker is going to come in, because we are removal light, and that's perfect for the Tireless Tracker. But, I mean, it's all about spinning that Marvel and getting the Ulamog. We don't really have a lot of ways to interact with our opponent. We just have to try to go quicker. Another poor start by my opponent with the Mountain over a Forest. Opponent did have to mulligan, so I guess better lucky than good. So we'll start off here with the Blooming Marsh into the Oath of Nissa. And then this will allow us to... We'll still most likely want to grab a land. I don't know if there's any Planeswalker, maybe a Chandra that I take here. Over Kiora. Well, we do have 2 land drops, so Kiora is actually not terrible. We'll take Kiora. So both these can just go on the bottom. And then we have an Initiate, which I have a hunch is going to get killed, but it'll still take our opponent to use their turn. Oh, wow, a Chandler Initiative our opponent, so I think I might prefer to kill. Yes, because my opponent would be out of green source still. So we're going to go Oath of Chandra here. Now, I'm wishing that I would have taken that land, of course, but I didn't foresee that I was going to just draw into a Kiora. So we do need to hit a land, or next turn, like another Oath of Nissa / Attune with the Aether. Yeah, my opponent is getting very unlucky with the lands. So it's going to be the Initiate. This could easily die to a Harness Lightning. That actually might be the wrong play as well, just to cast the Initiate to give my opponent the option to Harness Lightning it, as it's going to give energy for casting a spell. So, don't know how I feel about that. But again, my opponent has to have the Harness Lightning. I don't even know if they kept the Harness Lightning in. No negate, so we can feel safe to basically cast anything. I'm going to go ahead and cast the Kiora. Or is the Chandra? Both of them get... I think Chandra's actually more powerful here. This will do 4 damage. And opponent is so far off a Marvel. This actually might not even be Marvel deck. Now I'm thinking, yes, I had Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. There's no way that they would not be running Marvel with Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. I was thinking that if we wouldn't have seen something like Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, that it could be just what there's a Elder Deep Fiend deck going around that runs energy as well. So Elder Deep Fiend and energy, just trying to outvalue. But I don't think the Woodweaver's Puzzle Knots are in those builds. So Tireless Tracker, we did pretty much assume this was going to be the case. Might need to get rid of the Tireless Tracker with Chandra rather than go for Deploy. But we can do that through just casting Ob Nix. So I think that's actually the better play. Rather than just rolling the dice with our Deploy the Gatewatch. Or we could just draw a card. Yep, I think that's fine. So we'll kill the Tireless Tracker. And then go ahead for Ob Nixilis and just draw a card. And we did not hit a land, but that is fine, as we have huge advantage on board with our super friends and super enchantments. Opponent will crack the clue. Probably throw out another Tireless, or we're the Virtuoso, which isn't going to be much of a threat, as we can kill and I'm just going to kill it. See if a Thopter comes out. Fair enough. We're going to add some mana here. And I think I will roll the dice. So, no, I can't. I don't have the mana to do so. So I guess that was the wrong play to... We can put out a Servant of the Conduit, though, and a Nissa. Maybe that's the right play. So we'll go Nissa here. And then the Servant of the Conduit will allow us to add the mana for... We can untap it with... Ooh, I guess I can't untap it. So Deploy is just out of range here for what we want to be doing. Use the last counter for the Servant. I guess I didn't need to do that, but I'd rather untap a land and get in there for 5 rather than get in there for 2. Also, my opponent will be taking an additional 2 damage and a turn. Should block here. Actually, absolutely should block with the Thopter. That, I think, is a mistake because it's very, very... We can close out this game very quickly with activation of I guess that's how you beat Marvel when they just don't draw what they need. So it is very Marvel dependent. That is as one thing. If they're not running Glimmer or other ways to just find the Marvel, it can be tough. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next match. Alrighty, game number 2. We are on the draw. This seems to be an okay hand. No Oath of Nissa, but we do have 2 Initiates. So we're going to go ahead and keep it. We are a ways away from casting these Planeswalkers. A ways away from really doing anything. That is the real downside to this deck. And especially if our opponent is going to lead off with Inspector, leading to think it's on either black-white or black-blue. Could be in Mardu as well. There are a lot of decks still running the Thraben Inspector. It's like an 80-cent common. So it is Servant of the Conduit is a great draw. I'd rather hit Lanzo at this point, depending on what my opponent puts out. But we don't need to draw a land until next turn, so it is going to be blue-white. So this is going to be a lot harder for us to deal with, as probably should have gone Initiate there so it doesn't take energy. As Spellquiller is a real threat here. So the Initiate, I assume, is going to get exerted. If not, I may just make the trade. Yeah, so saw that coming. So here is a big play. This turn, we need to either hit a land or hit something that can go get a land. This is going to be Initiate.deck. Okay, so we did hit the land, so both of these can come out. And unfortunately, though, we don't have a lot of answers. I mean, Chandra off of the Deploy the Gatewatch next turn would be real clutch. But we do have the 6 mana. So now I would assume that lands are not very relevant. Do I roll the dice or just cast a Sorin? Because Sorin really stabilizes, especially with my opponent missing land drops. I'm surprised there's an Exert here. I think Exert is a wasted trigger, as it's just an additional 1 damage. My opponent's not in any jeopardy. Gaining that life is not relevant. So I disagree with that Exert. Maybe the 1 damage is relevant, but I doubt it, because it'd be damage next turn. So I could just throw out Sorin, kill a Glorybound Initiate, but then Sorin would be at the mercy of this. Well, I kill this one. Could be a negate in my opponent's hand. Oath of Liliana is quite weak. I think we're just going to roll the dice and see if we can hit some decent Planeswalkers. So this is kind of like our Marvel activation. So let's cross our fingers without a Censor or a negate in hand. And they both were in hand, or the Censor was in hand. Should have saw that coming. Now I can't actually cast it next turn. Maybe the right thing was just to throw out Oath of Nissa or Oath of Liliana. No, I highly doubt that. It would be a Liliana wouldn't have been terrible there either. Yeah, now it's a mistake now looking back, thinking that Censor. So hopefully my opponent exerts again. I highly disagree with that Exert. It's only getting it for 1 damage. I could have taken an additional, so it would have been 3 damage here, -1, so additional 2 anyway. Down to a 5. Just a Censor beats me. That's terrible. Again, I don't have a lot of ways to deal with these type of decks. I think I have to go. I can't go Sorin here. Oath of Nissa is quite awkward too. Oath of Nissa can get a land though. And we don't need that other Sorin, so we will go get the planes. Now what could Liliana do? I'm going to run out of mana. So I think it's Liliana and just make a zombie. Can't get Spellquellered here. We can just chump block with the zombie. See if a clue gets cracked. Or does the Spellqueller comes in. Yep, a Spellqueller. Can't actually deal with the Spellqueller. And cast Sorin and just dump a ton of damage into Spellqueller next turn just to survive. So we can double block this Glory Bound Initiate. And take 3, go to 2. But that Censor really hurt. And finding the Chandra in the bin too also hurts, so. Did not exert. Oh, that was a mistake. Now when my opponent probably should have exerted, my opponent did not. Crazy. No tap out here. We'll go ahead and attune because this gives mana with the Servant. And at this point, we can just go grab a black because that can cast the Oath of Liliana. Kind of difficult to tap out. I think I'd rather use an energy. Yes, because that keeps me... And there's a Spell Shrivel. So I don't have the mana for the Spell Shrivel. So we'll go ahead and tick up Liliana. And that's all she wrote for this one. So we can survive, barring something gets tapped down. We do have a panic button next turn, but we're at the mercy of like another Spellqueller coming in. Nissa getting back. Didn't find anything. Of course, there's nothing really in my graveyard that I can deal with. I might bring in the Glory or the Glorybringers in this matchup. They actually do seem very, very good. And we might need to bring in cards like Chandra. Just going to decide to go to take me to a 1. So that's going to force me to use Liliana. Another, oh no, that's a great one for my opponent, as it does give indestructibility. So I think that Selfless Spirit, unless we can find a way to deal with the Selfless Spirit, I think that's it, because the indestructibility will be... Alright, so we can actually tap those two down with Tamiyo. And float some mana for an Oath? No, so the Selfless Spirit's going to... We can still cast the Tamiyo. So I want to go Oath of Liliana here. And just an Inspector is going to get killed. go ahead and use the last bit of my energy for Tamiyo. Now I could destroy zombies. That would kill. They keep the Glorybringer Bound Initiate. Yeah, it's really, really tough to destroy. So these two don't untap. And I think that we still have to create a zombie. And I kind of do want to attack in, but I don't think there's any way I can safely do so. Good news is I do have a lot of zombies. Bad news is I am at 1 life. And used Deploy, and a lot of the cards I need here are just pretty much obsolete with that Selfless Spirit. And there is the Gideon, which should throw out a 2/2. Which I don't have the mana to really do anything for Nissa. Nissa can return a Tamiyo back. So I guess that buys me some time. Not needing the land drops anymore. We could attack everything into Gideon. Would my opponent use the Selfless Spirit at that point? Because I need 3 blockers back. I can create one. So attack Gideon, attack Gideon, attack Gideon, attack Gideon, and attack Gideon. Leave those 2 back because we can bring back a... See how my opponent does this. This is actually very risky. Because I want the Selfless Spirit gone. I guess we can tap down something besides... Yeah, I think this is the best attack. Nissa's going to give me another zombie when I cast Nissa. Just going to let the Gideon die. So I'll have another blocker, and those 2 tap down. And I think Nissa will have to just make a land a creature. So, yes, we have to tap these 2 down. And I still do have the Liliana to make a 2/2. Still nothing to get back. So actually, Nissa can just go ahead, since I'll have a blocker, can just go ahead and return a permanent. I'm not sure if I absolutely need to do that, though. Because this is till my next turn. Yeah, so again, it will create a zombie as well. So it's crazy we're still in this. I actually think we'd be winning if the Selfless Spirit wasn't here, because the board would be wiped and definitely in our position. And we get another couple activations with the Tamiyo. I don't think getting it back and ulting Gideon is going to be able to do 32 damage. And unfortunately, we are hitting a lot of like I might just attack with all the servants here. My opponent could be leaving up counterspell magic, which that's pretty tough. I think I'm just going to attack him with all of these. Here gets the Selfless Spirit out of the way. But I really think that there's going to be like a card in my opponent's hand here I'm not going to be able to deal with. Another counter spell with the one island open. There's also Spellqueller, which is very much a problem. I'll get another 2/2 zombie, which is the good news. And yep, this is going to be Tamiyo. And then next turn I can get Chandra. And no, I'd probably get another Tamiyo, to be honest, at this point. But I can't pay for a Spell Shrivel. I can't deal with a Negate. And I can't deal with another Spell Queller. So my opponent has quite a few outs. We can pay, though, for 3 mana, if that's a thing. And it happens, so we're going to tap these two. And they do not untap. We get another zombie. And it's off to the races. This could be another spell. I do want to counter the Spellcaller, though. I don't think there's a point to slow. Okay, slow roll it. That's fine. All they need to do is Spellcaller the Tamiyo there. Okay, so Fumigate is kind of awkward. The Harness Lightnings are also awkward. I do believe Glorybringer is pretty decent in this particular matchup. Cards like the Dovin Baan is actually pretty decent. Arlinn is again going to be kind of awkward to try to protect, but it does work with the Glorybringer. I'm not even sure that like we want to try to go for Oath of the Gate or Deploy the Gatewatch here. I think it's going to be too tough to really rely on deploy. In fact, this might be the time that we just get rid of all of our creatures and try to just rely on our Planeswalkers not called Deploy the Gatewatch. Sorin's actually quite weak too. We could keep in like a servant or two. I guess the Fumigates can come in for sure. And then just try to wipe the board one time. And yeah, I don't see getting to these 6-drops the right thing. I'm gonna keep in one deploy. It'd be very tough to get to the deploy, but all right. So this is probably a keepable hand. We do need to get something that can go 2-drop a red source to cast both Arlinn. This is a tough matchup just because anything that runs Spellcaller and Negates are going to be incredibly tough to deal with. That was a close match, though. A lot closer than I expected it. Last match, or last game. And was slow rolling us with that Spellqueller. Could have been, like I said, a million cards in hand that would have just... even a Declaration of Stone at that point could have got rid of all the zombies as the blockers. But the Selfless Spirit was the key card to draw into that gave the Indestructible. So opponent did mulligan to 6. Kept the 6. We do need some help, though. Again, without all the mana dorks, we have a very, very low land count and only 7 other ways to get them. But Nahiri will definitely help with that. If we can get that Attune next turn. So we need Oath of Nissa or Attune. Otherwise, I think we just have to succumb. So drew into that Sorin too. So we have 2 of our 6 drops here. And there's the Initiate once again. So there's Dovin. Ah, that's terrible. So maybe I should have kept in all the 2 mana spells. They come out the same turn my opponent's doing something. Yeah, that was a mistake. And now I think Spellcaller Negate's just going to be kept up, and we're going to get beat down by the Glorybound Initiate. It doesn't matter anyway. We missed that land. Have all Planeswalkers in hand. Jeez. And no Oath of Nissa or Attune. So possibly that was a mulligan. Opponent did not hit a land drop. There's the island. Not the greatest feel here to get Spellquellered. I think I'd rather have Kiora hit, but the likelihood of my opponent having a negate, a Spellcaller, or a Spell Shrivel is pretty much, I would say, 90%. And there's the negate. But at least we did hit the land drop. It progressed us closer. No red source still. There's not a lot of ways. I guess that's where we have to keep the mana dorks up. So stick a Glorybound Initiate and just control the board. That's my opponent's play. Hey, there we go, Attune. And this can go get us the red source. I'm going to try for a Nahiri. See if Nahiri gets banned. Probably should have went Arlinn there. Arlinn's tough to really protect. And there's negate number 2. Still can't cast either Chandra. We can go Kiora. See if Gideon's going to come join the group. So yeah, this is where we definitely needed one of our cards to stick. On the good news is we do get the Oath. We can't cast the Oath. We do get Kiora. But Kiora is very, very awkward. Just tries to get a land. And next turn we're actually getting hit for lethal, I believe. So 5, 6, 7. No, we'll be at 1. And not a lot of ways I see. Do get an Aether Hub here, but it doesn't do anything at this point. And Chandra doesn't really do anything either. So I'm sure my opponent has more negates or Spellcallers to really... So that the Knight's going to come at Kiora, and then 9 damage I'm assuming is going to come at me with the Glorybound Initiate and the Gideon. So, and then whatever else could all come at me. That's a possibility going down to 1 once again. No, okay, so Kiora and gonna go with the Exert, so we'll be down to a 3. And there's the counterspell mana kept up. The Oath of Liliana is actually interesting here. But Oath into Arlinn is less interesting because my opponent just kills the Glorybound Initiate. I still think there's like a Spellqueller, but we'll give it a go with Sorin. And there's the Spell Shrivel. So like I said, negate, Spell Shrivels, Gideons. This is an impossible matchup for us. We'll on to the next one. Alrighty, so match number 3 is a pretty keepable hand. We have the Servant and the Attune with Aether. So kind of awkward though with the mana sources. That's why we're running an Oath of Nissa as a 4 rather than Attune. As in this deck, Attune is good for finding those off lands, but when you have so many lands, like a bunch of 2-ofs, this requires 2 different. It can be very, very awkward. So a Botanical Sanctum for our opponent. And we draw 1, so this actually helps out a lot because we don't have to spend the Attune with Aether grabbing either a blue or a green. It would have got a green at that point. So at this point, we can just go grab a mountain to cast the Chandra. And we have the black source for the Servant. So opponent goes Servant. We will also follow suit with a Servant of our own. And we are off to the races of who can get out what quickest. And it looks like a Rogue Refiner coming down. Yep, Rogue Refiner. And hit the land. So, not sure if Chandra is the right call here. Or if it's just Tamiyo tapping these 2 down. I don't think Kiora does anything. Tamiyo is awkward as well. We have white, green, but this would have to be a blue. We'd have to use 2 of our energy, whereas Kiora just comes out. I think Kiora is better for next turn. I could just Chandra kill the Rogue Refiner, but then I just lose the Chandra on the backswing. So I could also just Oath of Liliana here, and that actually might be the better play. So Rogue Refiner will die. Because I do want to protect my Planeswalkers. I actually like that play better than the alternatives. Because next turn we will be able to cast the Chandra and have a blocker to keep Chandra alive. Actually really liking this card. Longtusk Cub. And a Servant. So the Cub can get quite big, but not out of Chandra's range. And we also can keep up the Servant as a blocker. So Chandra is definitely the right play here. So that is a pretty good play as well. As we have the double blockers for Chandra, we have Sorin coming out next turn, possibly, even if my opponent attacked in. So let's see if it's like a Glorybringer. And Glorybringer's fine. The Glorybringer will kill the Servant, though, if the Exert happens. So that's actually not as good as I want. No Exert, though, so this is good. Because we can't cast Sorin now. I can keep it locked down. That's not a good draw. Yeah, Glorybringer is rough. That was the one card my opponent could have that could really shut down what I was doing. I think I have to go with the Tamiyo here, and unfortunately it's... Without the Oath, we're just hemorrhaging energy, because we have to go blue, green, and white. And whoops, I just messed up. I clicked the plus with Tamiyo rather than the minus. I wonder if that actually will end up being a good thing. Highly doubt it, though. We get another zombie. So I guess that's one way. And if either of these do damage, I get to draw a card. See if another Glorybringer. Harness Lightning coming out on a zombie. That seems not very relevant. Unless my opponent's going to try to attack in with everything. At that point, we can kill off a Servant. Other than, actually, Glorybringer will probably exert here and kill this zombie. Which I'm pretty okay with that. Yeah, I'm actually pretty okay with that. I get a draw card. Hopefully it's a land. It is not a land. Dovin is okay. I want to get this initiate out, and I think the best way to do that, I'm out of energy though. I can't do that. I completely have lost all energy production with getting an initiate out, so it's kind of pointless to cast really anything here, because the Kiora can untap 2 things, and I guess Kiora is still the right play, but it's going to be tough to generate the mana that I need. This will give me another zombie, by the way. Or there's just a sensor. A negate's in hand. Okay, yep. And I'm out of energy. So that hurts. There's an Attune, which doesn't do a lot right now. We know it's just a one other random card in hand. I'm actually going to make a trade here. It's kind of pointless now to have the Servant without any energy. Blooming Marsh doesn't allow for anything as I'm out of energy. So the only card that I can cast is going to be this Arlinn, which is pretty bad, as the Glorybringer gets to exert. But it's better than doing anything at this point. And yeah, that Glorybringer. Harness Lightning is the last card in hand, it looks like. Let's see if Glorybringer exerts. We're a white source away from killing the Glorybringer and just being very far ahead at that point, because the Sorin killing the Glorybringer. Okay, is it exerting? I don't know how I feel about exerting. Another Servant, and I'm assuming it's a Harness Lightning because our opponent started to tap. We do have a Nissa that can come down. Oh, so close now for Sorin. We have the mana, just not... This has exerted. Is it just better to run out a... Nissa? The Harness Lightning will kill... Oh, yeah. It's probably just better just to run out of Nissa and get back a Servant, even though we can't... No, we can just untap a land here. And cast the Initiate. That was probably a bad idea to untap that one. As the Harness Lightning can now kill my Blooming Marsh. So... This doesn't kill it when it goes off. We do need the mana, though. I want to... I'm like, I can put it on the Blooming Marsh here and just have a 3-4, but that's probably bad. But we will keep it back, because I do want to keep my Nissa alive. Harnesses it anyway. All right. Okay, so 0 cards in hand. This is a very pivotal turn here. And yeah, that was a mess up of not getting the energy with the Servant. I can return Tamiyo. No, we cannot cast Tamiyo. Cannot cast Dovin. I can return... Nope, cannot cast Chandra. This is rough without the... The only thing I can cast is Kiora if I were to untap Nissa. I think we just need to return a Servant and go Dovin. And at least that gives us some play. Gives us 2 energy, so I can feel safe to run out this energy for Dovin. And that will protect both of my Planeswalkers. We get a zombie here. This is going to be a fun match because this is just the Teamer Good Stuff deck. They run a lot of Planeswalkers, I believe, as well. We just haven't seen it at the moment. Usually 4 of Glorybringers. Whirl of Virtuosos are in here somewhere. Rogue Refiners, Nissas. I think Saheeli might be. I've run a similar deck in the past. And my opponent's just going to scoop it up. Interesting, because I do not believe my opponent must be a scoop out of frustration who's drew another land. But we're both at the same land, so it's not like either one of us got flooded. There's a Deploy the Gatewatch, which is still pretty tough to cast. Glorybringers I don't feel are the right play. I do like Fumigate here. I think that a lot of the times that's what my opponent is trying to do, is get a bunch of creatures out, and I think Fumigate is perfect for that. So I don't like Gideon. I think Gideon is just a liability, and I feel the exact same way about Arlinn. I do like the Nahiri, so if we can somehow find space for them. Same with the Harness Lightnings, though. This might be another match where Deploy the Gatewatch running in Negate might not be the right play. Jace actually seems weak, though. I'm going to go down a few Deploy the Gatewatches, down to just 2 of them. Oath of Liliana has been very, very good in the majority of the matchups we've played. So, just Sorin going to be too much? And Ajani, possibly? I don't want the other Chandras. I mean, Chandra does feel pretty good, though. Maybe it's just not trying to go deploys. Again, running those in the gates are just too tough. And the other weak link would probably be either Liliana Death's Majesty or a Kiora. I think Kiora at this point is unnecessary. Like, the Kiora is... Yeah. So it's something like a Glorybringer of our own, possibly, or just the other Sorin. Because we're going down too low of count, I would say, for the Deploy the Gatewatch to be relevant. I think we do need to go more control here. Yeah. Sideboard is something we need to work on for sure. There's not a lot of room to bring things in and keep our count up. But hate kind of violating the spirit of the deck. This one's fine, though. This is going to ramp us into a Nahiri quite quickly. And that might just be exactly what we need. So, Botanical Sanctum, Aether Hub serving the Conduit. No first turn play by our opponent. There's a backup Nahiri. See if a Servant comes down of our opponents. There it is. And sure, I think Aether Hub's actually probably the right land to put out. See if it gets harnessed. There's the Long Tusk Cub with 3 energy. That is very difficult, to be honest. There's a Fumigate, though, so do I even want to worry about putting out anything here? I could force like an attack into Nahiri. I'd have to spend 2 energy at this point, though, and I might need that energy. Geez, so does the other Servant, I think, is the right play. Because then we can Fumigate next turn if my opponent overextends. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that, because we have the lands to cast most of our guys. Very Oath dependent. This deck is extremely Oath of Nissa dependent. The other Aether Hub probably needs to come in as well, or Aether, Attune with the Aether. So we do want an overextension here for the Fumigate. But to be honest, I could probably just go Nahiri. There could be a negate in my opponent's hand, and if so, we get to we'll run it out here. Red, white, 1/1. We'll go Nahiri. And there's the negate. So again, we are hoping for an overextension next turn for the Fumigate. Alright, so only 2 cards in my opponent's hand. Attacking, leaving back 1 of the Servants. Hate to see another negate, but I mean, it's just a strong hand if that's the case. Not a whole lot I can do at that point. I could try for another Nahiri. But how close am I to lethal at that point? Okay, so this is just a huge sign. Ew, I'm gonna keep back 1 there. So can I safely just block the Cub? As this is just gonna be fumigated. I could play around a Censor. I think I'm gonna play around a Censor. But, I mean, I think he's bluffing in a gate. And that's just beautiful to see. So I could have blocked there, but... we can cast an Oath of Nissa, correct? Yes, we do have the energy. If I find a Plains here, even better. Okay, we don't find anything. Any order on the bottom. But we do have... And that was still a good, it was a relevant card for sure. It allows for Nahiri. And this is just backbreaking to my opponent. That was a huge turn of events there. A lot of resources. Yeah, nothing by my opponent. Two cards in hand. Chandra at this point is just better than Nahiri, I would assume. And the Oath does allow us to I'm being very aggressive, killing anything my opponent puts out. Bestiary's fine. There's a good one to grab. I don't think we want to go the other Chandra at this point. And it's just going to scoop. My opponent is not... I don't think that either of these matchups are scoops. I think both of them could easily come back. But Ajani would have found top 3 cards in my library. Would have found nothing. And then I would have drawn a Blooming Marsh, which would have given me some more lands to work with. And then Ajani would have found a Sorin at that point, which could have been cast that turn. So the Sorin hitting, I think, would be game at that point. I don't know. We'll go on to the next match and see how well. We're 2-1 so far with this. What I thought, I was just hoping to win one match. So we're above my expectations. Alrighty, match number 4. We'd like to play first. This is a keepable hand. As we have both the Oath of Nissa and an Attune with Aether. I think the better use of our mana is the Oath of Nissa turn 1. It sets up what we want to find with the Attune. Most likely we would want to get another planes at this point because I think we can cast everything. There's the planes. So I think we take the planes. The hub is also okay, but I feel like we take the planes here. Because that way now we can go get anything. What is even relevant? I think just another green source because I don't think there's anything in our deck. Oh, we'll go get a black source. Black or red. We have one Oath of each. Man, maybe this deck wants way more Oath of Liliana, as the card was so clutch in some of those games. And that actually makes it easy for us because that means we're going to go get the red source with this good card. Ooh, blue. No. I was like, we need a blue to fix. But no, I have Oath of Nissa, so it doesn't matter. So Highland Lake, most decks that run Highland Lake have been called Fevered Visions, or because it's usually this is the Fevered Vision deck because they are really in the red-blue. There also is a red-blue spells that still is Fevered Visions. We have a great sideboard with Nahiris for that particular deck. We're going to go ahead and grab the Mountain and pass the turn. And hopefully we don't see like a Thermal Alchemist this turn or the Prowess Flyer. As like if we want to play the Counterspell War, I'm okay with this because we are running such a low land count. We've already filtered through many of them. We have 15 lands back in our deck. So I think that we're going to find gas more often than our opponent is. And that way if my opponent has to start countering every turn, one of them is going to eventually stick. At least I'd assume. Do I feel like running out of Oath of Liliana? I think I do. Without my opponent having anything. I really think this is a Fevered Vision deck, so I'm going to go with my gut, and we're just going to run out an Oath of Liliana. Because I'm not too worried about any threat that my opponent can put out next turn. And I want to start getting value out of my Planeswalkers that come down. And so anticipate, again, this could either be a Fevered Vision deck or the Torrential Gearhulk deck. This is actually, anticipates making me think it's a Torrential Gearhulk now. So we just need to have one of these stick. I think I'd rather have a Tamiyo stick than a Chandra, just because a Tamiyo is very difficult for my opponent to deal with. But, I mean, there's going to be a lot of cards countered. The Chandra, too, I think is better to hit here. So if my opponent just, for whatever reason, doesn't have a counter spell, this is a very good card. But probably 10 out of 10 times it's going to get countered. And there's the Spell Shrivel. Pass it back to my opponent. And we're going to play this kind of war for a little bit. Just going to continue to cast cards because if I don't, eventually they'll just outdraw with the Glimmers and such. And if my opponent did not hit a land drop, that's good news as well. So I think here we will play an Oath of Nissa. Unfortunately, it doesn't grab what I want it to grab. An Aether Hub is fine. And I think maybe a Servant is... No, it's still... I still think we run out Tamiyo. which should get a Spell Shrivel or another card, a Censor. Yep, there's another Spell Shrivel, but eventually my opponent will run out of counter spells, and eventually we should be pretty good with lands, with 14 remaining in our deck. And I mean, it's just gonna be Planeswalker after Planeswalker we should be drawing into. And eventually, if even one of these Deploy the Gatewatch hit, we're in great shape. Well, maybe I spoke too soon. This at least will thin out some more. And at this point, I don't really know what we need. But you can see, not a lot of lands left, only one more Attune and 2 more Oaths, an Oath of Chandra, and then a few Mana Dorks. None of that's just pure gas. So we'll go ahead and just grab another Forest. And go with a Servant. This does give a Harness Lightning. Unfortunately, I think we're going to get Glimmered here. I don't think my opponent cares about a Servant. It's going to be a long, grindy matchup. These are once again, these are hard matchups for me to deal with. I wonder if I keep the Oath of Liliana in this matchup, just because the second paragraph on this card is very, very relevant. Assuming a Glimmer is coming down. Just another Anticipate, that's fine. Just replaces itself. At this point, I think my opponent wants a land, so a land's going to go on top. And possibly the Servant being harnessed. Hedron Archive. Well, allows for another Spell Shrivel, but that's about it. And I will run the Deploy the Gatewatch out, though. So, is this just the blue-red Eldrazi? Just trying to control until Ulamog. Well, we have a backup deploy now. Fourth Spell Shrivel? That's the only card now. Censor won't do it. Or third Spell Shrivel. Up. It happens. Only can pay 2. And now we're unfortunately under the Torrential Gearhulk range. Plenty of mana with my opponent as well. But that's just pretty bad luck there with all 3 of them. Kind of good news, though, if my opponent is going to tap out. Because we have the other Deploy the Gatewatch. That Chandra is not relevant. As we have a number of ways just to kill the Chandra here. Can I cast both? I don't think I want to, though. I can cast both here, because 4... 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No. I can't quite cast it, so we'll go deploy. Oh, that is just... That is sad. That is super sad here. It's also something I can't protect. So we get the other deploy off, and we've thinned out very, very well. But do find the Oath of Nissa servants and Botanical Sanctum, so So maybe, yeah, I probably should have attacked Chandra there. I'm interested in what Chandra's going to do. I decided to go for the Hedron Archive. I think that's the better route. It's 2 cards late game. If my opponent is trying to ramp up to Ulamog, still a problem. It'll force both of the elementals to attack into Nahiri. If my opponent decides to wipe the board. Okay, well, that makes it an easy choice. As only one has to attack in Nahiri. Yuck, though. That deploy was just awful. Hit one of the most not relevant targets, Nahiri. Love to hit like a Chandra or a... Huh, decided to go both at. Okay, so a Chandra or a... Not a Servant. That's pretty bad. Well, I get 2 blockers with the zombie and the servant. So, again, if my opponent decides to attack in to Kiora, I actually might let Kiora die. The opponent has tons of cards in hand. Hasn't hit land drops for many, many turns. Love did another Deploy the Gatewatch at this point. You'd think that we'd have quite a few relevant targets to hit. We'll be bringing in all the Nahiris and Chandras. Wonder if Glorybringer is actually relevant. I doubt it. I think Glorybringer would be too tough. But we'll think about sideboard when it comes to that. Yeah, Kiora is terrible here, actually. I'll just let Kiora die if Chandra does tick up. I could actually see a -2 Chandra here. Clear the board of a zombie and a servant. So there's a Spatial Contortion and the Elementals. Yeah, I want to keep Kiora alive. 2 cards left in my opponent's hand. I don't see myself beating this Chandra down with just a zombie, so we will keep it alive. It goes to a 2. Can get through some more cards. I mean, it basically is draw. So Ajani is extremely potent here. Unfortunately, Ajani dies. This would kill Kiora. I still think that's... Oh, man. This is a very, very... I feel like the 4th spell shrivel is going to come down here. Yep, there's the 4th one. So, unfortunately, I think we'll just go ahead and kill Kiora. It's not surviving next turn. And no land, so let's get a servant. And there's the other deploy. And that's that. Chandra's going to get out of hand. Quads on the spell shrivel. Yikes. So here, though, I think my opponent will probably just sack the Hedron Archive and start beating down with the Chandra Flamecaller. I could actually top deck a Chandra Flamecaller of my own, or a Sorin. and be in good shape. Or Deploy the Gatewatch. Jace is about as terrible as they come here. It does draw me a card, though. Unless there's the 5th Spell Shrivel in my opponent's hand. Or at this point, Torrential Gearhulk. And we absolutely want that on top. And we do have a way to keep the Jace alive because we are getting a zombie. So, we're actually in better shape than I would think we'd be at this point. I think the Archive is going to die. We could see a Torrential Gearhulk come down. Pull from Tomorrow. Yeah, that's a good one too. As it refills my opponent's hand very substantially. We can kill Chandra next turn with, well, probably not. If a tick up. So Drowner was the card that my opponent decided to actually drop. Gonna go with the elementals, huh? We'll let one go through. Block one of them. Go down to a 5. So much card draw, though. Gotta think there's other counter spells. There's a Fumarole in my opponent's hand as well. And that's Ulamog mana. So one. Yep, there's the Ulamog mana. And I don't think that Sorin does anything to Ulamog. So I'm just going to scoop it up. Bristling Hydra actually does seem okay in this match. Yeah, it puts some pretty good pressure. I do like Chandra and Nahiri. So I'm going to keep the Deploy the Gatewatches in, even though, in all honesty, it's probably not going to hit. Arlinn Cord is... Dovin's good too. Kiora, all of them I guess are fine. Ob Nixilis is fine too. It can destroy, draw some cards. Liliana, probably the weak link here is Liliana. It can get back Bristling Hydras. Sorins are something that if we can get them to stick, they're going to be backbreaking. Gideon seems good too. I mean, this is tough to cut cards at this point. In fact, it might just be back to the Deploy the Gatewatches, just not relying on them so much. Ajani, yeah, Ajani seems okay. The Oath of Liliana, I'm actually going to get rid of it, and then we'll call this good. I hate taking the main, the namesake out of the deck, but I don't see it with negates coming in. A 6-mana spell hitting very often. We'll keep this one just because we have the Attune and the Oath of Nissa. At this point, I think I want to go the Attune route rather than the Oath, as that can guarantee that we have the Servant on turn 2. And we are going to get a white source. Could have made the argument for another green because we do have the Oath of Nissa. Blooming Marsh is fine here. We'll play it this turn. And Servant can come down. And we can hopefully hit the Dovin. Love to see a tap land come here. I mean, the gate is pretty brutal. Yeah, I don't think I run into a negate. Interesting. So my opponent is debating whether to counter this Oath of Nissa. And I'll 100% allow that. We do have the right mana for everything. If I grab a land here, I can almost... Still can't pay for the spell shrivels, but at least we can start some aggression with the servants. And land over Tamiyo? I think so. Attack into a servant. Could get Harness Lightning, could get killed. That's another reason why I took the land. So anticipates most likely coming down in a turn. Yep. To try to find a spell shrivel. So we do need our next drop to hit. Comes to play Tapland to be awesome. Make my life a lot easier, other than the gate is still a very, very real threat. Gonna go Kozilek's Return. That's actually a huge play. Dovin is probably better here than Chandra. Chandra better than Dovin. Dovin better than Chandra. Tough one, but I think Chandra is better here. And this is an instant, so I'm surprised my opponent just ran it out. We get a mountain off the top too, which is very relevant. And now my opponent is definitely at the mercy of the Chandra. Like, this is a very, very tough card for my opponent to deal with. A Chandra on 5, it ramps. I think that we're just going to keep exiling the top card of our library and casting whatever's on the top. Because eventually my opponent's going to run out of counterspells. And it's going to... Hopefully we hit land drops as well, and we can cast double cards per turn. Thought-Out Seer is actually pretty terrible. It's going to get rid of Ajani. This does force out... I think actually get rid of Dovin here. No, it doesn't matter what they... Yeah, this is a you get rid of Ajani. If not, I cast Ajani and kill Thought-Not Seer. Disagree with that wholeheartedly, because we can cast the Ajani next turn. And it still ticks up Chandra. Could go for... No, this is still the right play. And we do get another hit for next turn. So much card draw. Going to be very, very tough for my opponent to come back from this. The Shrine of the Forsaken Gods is starting to tick up. Yeah. Don't think they need a scoop, but it's tough. I don't know what's up with the opponents today, the scoops. Because we don't have anything coming up that's terribly exciting. I still think I need to run these type of cards. Do I need to run the Bristling Hydras still do seem pretty good too. If I can just get it up to a 4-3, even the 4-3 is, or 4-4 is out of, or 5-4 is out of the range of quite a few things. So I think I'm going to keep it in. Gideon still seems alright. Oath of Liliana gets a lot better knowing that there's Thought-Knot Seers. But probably isn't necessary. I do want a Deploy the Gatewatch, but again, I don't think the Deploy. Arlinn is something that creates, yeah, it creates threats. Tamiyo is kind of awkward. Other than with Tamiyo, if we can get Tamiyo up quick enough, I don't know. It's rough trying to decide what comes in. Now even with Thought-Knot Seer, Glorybringer does look pretty good. Does give me something for Nahiri. Maybe Nahiri is too much. I'm going to put in one Glorybringer. Possibly the Bristling Hydras are not the route to go. They do create a lot of... No, I still do want them. They get around negates. Nahiri is something you can deal with Ulamog. It is a top deck. Liliana puts out a 2-2, starts getting back a creature. Is Sorin just the weak link just because it's so... Yeah, I think we're probably are too top heavy. I mean, the whole reason we got rid of the Deploy the Gatewatch is because I think it's unfeasible to cast them. But this one's actually fine. My opponent keeps their hand. We do have the clock going for us as well in this match. So no Attune or Oath. So if the Initiate gets handled, we could be in for a rough time. Okay, so we are in for a rough time. We're still hitting land drops. We can actually cast the majority of Planeswalkers in our hand, not the Chandras. So Dovin and Tamiyo can come out next turn if we hit a land. The problem is we have a few comes into play tap lands, and the majority of ways to get lands are going to cost us. But we do hit it. So I'm going to put out the weakest link, or the weakest Planeswalker here, which is Kiora. Maybe Tamiyo is the weakest one there. Probably should have just thrown out Tamiyo. And there's another sensor. So can't pay for the sensor. Still a long ways off Liliana or Chandra. It requires the Oath at that point. So throwing Tamiyo out here, we'll go Oath. Okay, actually I was worried if that got countered. Well, we do want to land, I would assume, here. And we'll take the land. Unfortunately, it comes into play tapped. But now we're in good shape as far as being able to cast all of our Planeswalkers. Fortunately, it anticipates most likely to hit or pull from tomorrow for 3. Nothing. We're in Chandra range. I can't even deal with Chandra unless I top deck my own land for a Chandra. Risky. If we hit a Chandra here, we're in great shape. Or a land here, we're in insanely good shape. Because our Chandra kills his Chandra. The good news is whenever my opponent taps out, we can get there. So land off the top would be awesome. Chandra Torch of Defiance is not awesome. Dovin is not awesome. Liliana is not awesome. I think Liliana is probably the best thing because it forces out my opponent to do something. But we definitely needed to hit a land. And there was a land and a Glorybringer coming up. And still no land of our own. So, opponent was very reckless just throwing out that Chandra. But I guess you've seen the deck. Yeah, not a lot that I have answers for Chandra on 5. Even Sorin would have worked with the land. If a land, for example, if we had a land in hand. I think that we just get... kind of controlled out here now with, I'm assuming, counterspells in hand. This is going to give us another... So it doesn't matter if I block here, Liliana dies. Because if I block here, he just flips it, so... Alright, so we have another opening. Unfortunately, we did hit a land with Liliana. And Jace is pretty terrible as well. It doesn't allow me to... the same play is going to end up happening. And with all the mana up. So... Chandra doesn't do anything. It just ticks for 2. Tamiyo doesn't do anything. It just... Yeah, that's pretty bad. Dovin I can just draw and gain. Is that as good as a Jace? Now Jace forces... So we want to hit a land here. We're going to scry and hopefully hit a land. So tempting to attack in with this zombie because we can only do 6 damage with our own Chandra, but I want my opponent to do the same thing as last turn. Activate the Wandering Fumarole, which will require quite a bit of resources. It is a 4 to activate. Only 2 cards in my opponent's hand. My opponent is deciding to play them rather than go for the discard route. Oh, but there's Ulamog. So the last card in hand was Ulamog. We're gonna succumb to Ulamog again. So I'm just gonna concede this up. And there's another land off the top. We need a land a turn earlier. I don't think it would have mattered. There's not a lot of ways we can deal with Ulamog. Nahiri coming up. But again, this is a hard matchup with all the counter spells. Chandra Ulamog twice in a row were the definitive pieces. Not too bad, though. We ended up going 2-2 with the deck. I'm happy with it. Definitely some changes we could have made. Let's just go ahead and look at those real quickly. And maybe just really start to focus on, I don't know, Sorin as a one-of feels good to me. You want as much the Deploy the Gatewatch getting the biggest bang for your buck, but I think I'd rather focus on castable planeswalkers. So I think like Dovin or Tamiyo or Kiora. Kiora is awkward because Kiora doesn't, the plus or -2 with Kiora is quite weak. So I think that Kiora doesn't quite work in this particular deck. Whereas Tamiyo did seem pretty good to kind of stall the game to get where we need to be. Yeah, those type of cards. Little Chandra still did seem really, really good because it's the control element and can be upgraded later on. And so I think those are the biggest changes I would make. Possibly go up in count to the Oath of Lilianas. Deploy, though. Deploy, I really wish Deploy read a Planeswalker from your graveyard so look at the top 7 cards of your library, put them into your graveyard, and then put up to 2 Planeswalker cards from among them onto the battlefield. Because that would have a lot more synergy with Kiora and fallen Planeswalkers at that point. Also, it would give you a more reliable mill strategy. I just think that this card is actually lacking because it requires you to play such a high amount of, if people remember Collected Company, the sweet spot was 28 creatures in your deck to consistently hit the 2 cards off the top 6. So, I mean, this is probably, you need what, 24, someone do the math on the Deploy the Gatewatch to consistently hit the 2, or just be above the odds of hitting two Planeswalkers off of Deploy. And maybe another like Oath or Nissa's Renewal could be in this deck, just so you can ramp up to that and then safely cast into all of your Planeswalkers at that point. It also does thin out the deck, but probably, I don't know if that's the right play. Harness Lightning, I think that the right thing too is just completely get like Harness Lightning and go into just Radiant Flames. And that way you can side out the creatures and have like a Radiant Flames route for the deck. And then possibly though that we need more lands in the deck. Yeah, I don't know. I think with some fine tuning though, this deck could become a thing. We do have some like Arlinn. Arlinn probably doesn't deserve to be in here. It's just awkward compared to Gideon. I think Gideon is just hands down better for what we're trying to do. And same thing goes with Kiora. Those are the 2 weak links I'd assume. So just go to 1 Kiora. Possibly just having the 1 Arlinn in here is fine. But then adding another Chandra in the main, even though that we do run the other Chandra, and cutting down to 2 Sorin probably feels right. Or possibly just 1 Sorin and just going into more Chandras. Like, I think Chandra is the key card for this deck, ramping into the turn 4 Chandra. Yeah, just go into 1 Sorin and then Deploy the Gatewatch. This does make us have less. Well, we're still at the same amount of Planeswalkers, just we can't hit. It's going to make awkward with the Chandras and whatnot. And possibly, I don't know, possibly just run. I did like the Tamiyos. They're pretty good against many of the decks. Just as a stall type route. Still think Radiant Flames or Fumigate are the right thing in the sideboard. I still would want a Nissa's Renewal. I think that is a pretty key card, but you probably just want the 1 of in the deck. And then maybe even cut like an Attune with the Aether. Those were pretty clutch with the low land count having early. So possibly just maybe a Tamiyo out of the main. We have 2 in the side. And do some more testing with this and see if it actually smooths it out. But hitting a Nissa's Renewal early off of even like a Chandra Torch of Defiance can then be another way to fix your deck, because at that point you get a Plains, a Mountain, and an Island, and then you can cast everything else in the deck, or 2 Mountains, for example, to cast that Chandra Flamecaller. But can't be too unhappy with the 2-2, and I expected to go even worse. So Hope you enjoyed this. We're going to check out some Modern or some 1 versus 1 Commander for next week and be done with this standard for a while. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.